What is up, everyone? This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. We have some news that we have to talk about on today's episode. A lot of stuff that has happened. Dolphins sign an offensive lineman. A lot of injury updates after the first preseason game. We'll have you covered here. We'll start with the signing, and that was offensive lineman Chasen Hines. Now, that name may sound familiar, well, because he was already a Miami Dolphin. He was just actually released last week when the Dolphins signed Mike Harley Jr. So they bring back Chasen Hines, and you might be wondering, well, if they just waived him this past week, why would they bring him back? Well, the answer is Kion Smith having a torn ACL, which is a big, I wouldn't say it's a big loss, but it's definitely not ideal for Miami. Smith suffered a torn ACL. He started at left guard for the Fins in their first preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons, and left that game in the first quarter due to a knee injury. People were hoping it was not going to be that bad, but ultimately yesterday it was announced it was a torn ACL. He was placed on injured reserve, which ended his season, which obviously was going to happen after a torn ACL. Now, Smith was someone that was not a roster lock by any means. Don't get it twisted. He was fighting for a roster spot, but there was a pathway for him to be on this team as a depth piece, as the offensive line depth for Miami is not good whatsoever. Something well documented, and it doesn't get any easier with Smith being out for the year. But Chasen Hines is back on this team, and that is the offensive lineman that Miami ended up signing. I do think there is still a need to add more to this group and go out there and sign an interior offensive lineman. Maybe Mark Lewinsky for insurance and depth, or maybe even go out there and try to make a trade here after seeing who played well and who didn't play well in the first week of the preseason. But like the video for Chasen Hines to be back. Listen, I know it's not the biggest name, but he is a new Miami Dolphin, I guess, so hit that thumbs up button and show your support for Chasen Hines. Let's get into some of the other injury news here around the Dolphins, because there is quite a lot to get and tell you guys about. And I start with Aaron Brewer, who we told you last week that he left the final joint practice with the Atlanta Falcons with an injury, and it looked like it was a hand injury. Well, Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, not as much as like a report, but kind of came out with this nugget that said the hand injury could sideline him multiple weeks, and that's not ideal, obviously. Brewer is your starting center, and you'd like to see him be fully healthy. Now, I would probably predict he'll be ready to go for week 1 against Jacksonville on September 8th, but it is a little bit disappointing to see Brewer be out with an injury. Hopefully it's nothing too serious, but he could be missing practice for the next 2 weeks. That is not ideal. There's other defensive injuries we have to talk about. Siran Neal, corner. I didn't really recognize this because no one really spoke about it on Dolphins Twitter, but apparently he did leave the first preseason game with an injury. I thought it was just because of rest. Now, it is reported that Neal is fine. He only played 18 snaps, but he looks like he is fine. He had a good moment in that game against the Atlanta Falcons where he made a tackle that forced a fumble, but also was able to shed the tackle and go up and fall on the football for the recovery. So Siran Neal, who is battling with Ethan Bonner for a spot on this roster, as it's a competitive cornerback group. You got a top guy in Ramsey, Kendall Fuller, Kader Kohu, and then you've got a lot of people fighting it out for roster spots. You'd imagine Cam Smith is safe, the second-round pick from 2023, but then you've got Neal, Bonner, Nick Needham, all fighting for roster spots. So Neal looks like he's okay, which is ideal for him. Vanderbaugh, he also left with an injury, and he is undergoing an MRI on his leg. So we'll see there, but he's someone that is also really fighting for a roster spot and could find some value on special teams as well. That's a competitive linebacking group too. I mean, that's the good news about this team. I say there's always competitive and there's a lot of battles, but it's good to have a lot of different positions that there are people having to play unbelievable football to make your team. That just really tells you that there's a good overall roster being constructed here. by Chris Grier. We got more injury news to talk about here in just a second, but make sure you are started with Game Time. Game Time is the best ticking app in the market. They allow you to see your seat when you're looking on the app. They also have the all-in pricing, which allows you to see the exact price of your seat while you're actually looking at the ticket. You're not going to get blindsided by any fees when you're checking out. That is very, very good to me. And they're actually offering $20 off to the real ones right now. When you download the app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS, you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but get that app, download it, create an account. CHATSPORTS is the promo code. $20 off. Get started with Game Time today. There's another injury to the defense. Grayson Murphy, edge, outside linebacker, however you want to put it, the UDFA out of UCLA, who actually got pretty good money from Miami post-NFL draft to get him in this building of Miami. He left the game against the Falcons on Friday as well, and it might be more of a serious injury to Murphy, which is very, very unfortunate. Allegedly has an immobilized brace on his right knee after the game. There was also reports that he looked sad and not in good spirits after the game. So this could be an injury that at bare minimum ends his preseason, which is very tough for him, as he was someone who didn't get selected in the draft and was trying to earn a way onto this roster. And I don't really think there was ever a pathway for Grayson Murphy, especially with Quentin Bell continuing to play well. And he did play well in that Friday preseason game. But Murphy's chance of making this roster are probably done if he's not going to be able to practice and participate in these preseason games over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So big time bummer for Grayson Murphy, who actually was playing pretty well for Miami on Friday, had a couple of key TFLs and good run stops as well. So it's a bummer that Murphy is going to have a knee injury that keeps him out for a while. All right, we'll shift to the offensive end because there was a couple injuries to tight ends. Jody Fortson, who is someone I've been very high on, thought could make this team. Don't know if I really feel that way anymore. He also left the game on Friday, went to the locker room. But he did receive good news. His injury was just a stinger, so nothing really serious whatsoever. And Fortson should be able to return to practice and be ready to go for the next couple weeks, as he's going to continue to try to prove to Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier that he deserves to be on this roster. Last one that we'll have to talk about today with the injury front is Tanner Conner, another tight end who played really well. He was actually the leading catcher and receiver for Miami in that game on Friday when he caught 3 passes for 70 yards, including a nice little 44-yard pass in the first quarter on a nice little seam from Skylar Thompson that set up the Dolphins scoring a touchdown. He left the game after his third catch, where he picked up about 14 or 15 yards, and it was an interesting one because when you watch the replay, it's just like, how can you be hurt on that? It was reported that it was a ribs injury for Tanner Conner, which they can be tricky, man. The ribs aren't nothing to play with. Luckily, it's not a soft tissue injury or anything like that to an ankle, a knee. Nothing hopefully is broken. There isn't any confirmed reports right now of Tanner Conner's injury status. You hope that it's nothing too crazy. But right now, the Dolphins are just still awaiting the official news on Tanner Conner's injury. But it is rib, and that's kind of the update that I wanted to provide there, right? Because you never want to see Tanner Conner being hurt, and that's kind of someone who's really trying to fight this way on, man. And the tight end group is tough too. You got Jonnu Smith, you got Durham Smythe, Julian Hill. All 3 of those guys did not even play on Friday. And then you got Fortson, Tanner Conner, and Hayden Rucci all in the wings trying to make this team. That's going to do it for today's show. Just had to come up, update you on the latest injury news for the Dolphins, as well as that signing of Chasen Hines. Make sure you are subscribed, because even on an off day like today, still going to have you covered with everything surrounding the Fins. So hit that sub button, and I'll see you tomorrow in another video. Peace out.